With an astonishing blend of ignorance and hypocrisy, Czech President Petr Pavel has sparked outrage by proposing the close surveillance of Russians living in Western nations. In an alarming comparison to treatment of ethnic Japanese during World War II, Pavel argues that stringent security measures are warranted. This bewildering outburst not only exposes the discrimination faced by Russians, but it also unveils a concealed reality within Europe. Hi and welcome to TFIGlobal, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I'm your host, Atul Mishra. Let's begin. It comes as no surprise that discrimination against Russians has skyrocketed after the Russia-Ukraine war. They have become victims of prejudice and are treated differently in various aspects of their lives. However, Pavel's remarks takes this discrimination to a new level, revealing a deep-seated bias against Russians in Western societies. The increasing influence of Russia in the Czech Republic adds an intriguing dimension to this issue. Pro-Russian sentiments and protests have gained traction in the country, raising questions about the motivations behind Pavel's comments. While it is essential to differentiate between the Russian government and its citizens, it is concerning that these sentiments might be fueling discriminatory attitudes toward Russians living in the Czech Republic. The Czech president's intentions are profoundly worrying. How can a leader who supposedly champions human rights and democratic principles openly target a specific group based on nationality and ethnicity? This undermines the credibility of the Czech Republic and exposes the hidden agenda prevalent in Western Europe. Russians are being singled out and targeted everywhere, and it is evident that discrimination against them is not an isolated incident. The Czech Republic is not the only country involved in such practices. Behind the scenes, many alarming events are occurring across the European Union. Basic human rights violations against Russians have become all too common. They are treated differently, monitored incessantly, and subjected to surveillance that violates their privacy and civil liberties. The principles of equality and justice seem conveniently forgotten regarding Russians. This situation is even more distressing because these same countries, which proudly flaunt their commitment to human rights and democratic values, have now become complicit in open discrimination and violence against Russians. The hypocrisy is palpable. While they lecture the world about equality and fairness, they conveniently ignore the plight of Russians living in their midst. These countries are swiftly becoming the breeding ground for a new wave of discrimination with no regard, absolutely no regard for the principles they claim to uphold. Europe's untold secret is not limited to the Czech Republic alone. In addition to the concerns mentioned earlier, it is essential to highlight the discriminatory actions taken by Latvia against Russians who do not speak Latvian. Latvian authorities have been forcefully ejecting Russians from the country and subjecting them to language proficiency tests to determine their right to remain. This further exemplifies the discriminatory treatment faced by Russians in Europe, where their language skills are exploited as a pretext for exclusion and discrimination. It is a widespread issue that demands urgent attention. The international community must condemn these discriminatory practices and hold the responsible nations accountable for their actions. The principles of human rights and democracy cannot be selectively applied to serve a few's interests while disregarding others' rights and dignity. It is time for a collective awakening. One must challenge the prevailing biases and confront the underlying prejudices that have allowed this discrimination against Russians to flourish. The West cannot claim to be defenders of human rights and champions of democracy while silently condoning such injustices. The Czech president's bizarre outburst serves as a wake-up call, exposing the ugly truth beneath the surface of European society. It is a call to action, demanding that we confront our biases and strive for a world that upholds the principles of equality, justice, and respect for all. The discrimination faced by Russians in Europe is a stain on the international community's conscience. And it is high time we address this issue with the urgency and seriousness it deserves.